We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Braith. It is Thursday night and it is Supermac and Gibbo. Good evening, lads.
Hi, Steve. Hello, John.
Good to see you. Good to see you, lads. International break is upon us, so time to reflect, I guess, on the first few games of the season. And looking back at the weekend fixture, first of all, John, the win against Tottenham Hotspur, 7 points out of 9 is where we're at. I would have took that at the start of the season and through to the next round of the cup. But the Spurs game again, leaving fans a bit frustrated.
Yeah, I can understand that. But as you say, we're fifth top. We're level on points with Arsenal. We're in the next round of the League Cup, and we've got Wimbledon, which is a good draw. So on the surface, things are terrific. Yes, performances in every game have been patchy. They've been good in spells and not in others. We started well against Spurs and then lost away. And yes, we got battered in terms of possession, etc., against Spurs. But the thing I've got to say about they played the way I expected them to play, to have loads of possession, to look good, but to be vulnerable because they've got a soft underbelly. I mean, they had all the possession, but they played in front of us for so long. They didn't get behind us. The shots were from distance. They didn't carve us up. Even the goal they got was a cross, was an initial mistake by Pope, a cross shot, which hit Burn and went in the top corner. And aren't they suicidal? I mean, our winner, one thing you don't do against Newcastle with their front three, who are electric pace-wise, is you don't play a high line because they'll counter-attack you and they'll get in behind. And Joe Linton put Murphy on his bike, and Murphy was terrific, full of pace, went on, didn't do the stupid thing and had a shot from angle, rolled it across the Isaac, and we've won. Now, that's suicidal. Are Spurs ever going to learn? They got copped that way against us at St James's in the past. Did they ever learn that our front three are as quick as Usain Bolt? Don't play a high line against them and let them counter you. But that's what they did, so I've got no sympathy for Spurs at all. I mean, their vulnerability is shown by the fact that they've dominated in possession 2 away games against Leicester and against Newcastle and ended up with 1 point out of 6.
Malcolm, it was, I watched the game back. I always like to go, obviously I'm at the game. And then when I get home, I like to watch it at my leisure. And I watched it back. And my overall impression of the game when I got home, was that Newcastle had, got away with one, I think, is probably the best expression. I thought they played well in fits and starts. Certainly weren't playing to the best of their ability, but I thought defensively Newcastle were, resolute, and certainly something which we were missing last season. So overall, I thought the man of the match for me was Tino. I thought Tino was again showing why Eddie Howe has put his faith in him. I thought the combination of Burn and Shaw this season was probably going to be, the formation that would start with. When he got suspended, I was worried. I was thinking, Kraft coming in, is he really going to be able to do the business? But I thought Kraft again had another good game alongside Dan Burn. But I thought Nick Pope, despite the fact his kicking's poor, still, and he still looks very nervous when he's coming out for crosses. He's overall, his saves were superb. I thought his shot stopping was really good. So I think the back four played particularly well, but the rest of the team again just we don't seem to be gelling up front for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. I take your point on that, Steve, but I want to go back to the comment you made on Pope. Mm-hmm. I think Pope at the moment is causing a lot of nervousness in the back line. And if you look carefully, the back line is dropping right back into the 6-yard box. When Pope first arrived, he was pushing the back line out. Get out, get out, get out all of the time. And he dominated pretty much the whole of the penalty area. He was prepared to come for anything. He's not doing that now, and I'm not sure what is going on. But at the same time, there's another major question mark that I've got over him. When he first arrived, what he used to do was he used to dive and bring the ball into his body. What he's doing now is he's pushing it away. And it's right in front of his midriff, for heaven's sake. Just get hold of it. And I don't know what's happened whilst he's been off all that time with injury, but something has affected his game, and it's detrimental to what we knew him to be. And I really don't understand why. If you look at the Spurs goal, that the shot was somewhat angled from left to right, and Pope, he's gone down to his left, but the ball, if he had kept his arms out the way, the ball would have hit his midriff. And yet Pope's got his hands to it and pushed it wide straight to a Spurs player. What the hell are you doing? I just, for the life of me, I just didn't understand it. Just tuck your arms around it and keep it tight to your body. But no, push away, push away, push away. And it's almost, and that's what foreign goalkeepers have always done. And what made our goalkeepers in this country and generally around Britain so superior was the fact that when shots came in, when crosses came in, if it was catchable, we'd catch it. Whereas all of the European goalkeepers and that they were punching, they were palming out and all sorts, and you're not removing the danger. Then you're just creating a further danger. Whereas when a goalkeeper catches the ball, the game is dead, totally dead, and you as a side can then get yourself reorganized how you want to then go to attack their end. And we kept blowing it. And the Spurs goal, I felt so sorry for Dan Burn to be put into that situation by his goalkeeper, who should have caught it, didn't, knocked it straight to the fella who was wide of the far post, and he's knocked it straight back in. And Dan Burn, facing his own net, for heaven's sake, could do little else but to try and make contact, and well, he finished up knocking it into his own net. And I just thought, come on, how dare you put him in that situation when all you have to do is just get hold of the ball. And so Pope's got an awful lot of he's got a lot of work to do, but he needs to look in a mirror first and say, now, come on, are you a foreign goalkeeper or are you British? And let's get down to some British goalkeeping where if it's catchable, catch it. Kill the game. Instead of all this foreign nonsense of pushing it away from your midriff. Absolutely crazy. And it's giving opposing sides every chance. And so whenever the ball is coming into the box, they're just going to keep getting bodies in there, knowing that the keeper's going to be dropping it all over the place.
Ironic, isn't it, that we're talking like this now, and because of a change of England manager, he's just got back in the England squad, and he's away at the moment with England. And funnily enough, and that was true, and very much what Malcolm was saying. The ball was very catchable. It wasn't that he was stretching and I had it clawed in. It was already in his midriff, and the goal wouldn't have come if he hadn't pushed it out to Johnson and created all the problems that he created. Amazingly, after that, something that Steve was saying early on, some of his actual other shot stopping was terrific, because 3 minutes before we went off and scored the winning goal, he prevented Spurs going ahead when I think it was Maddison who had that terrific shot into the top right-hand corner, and he got up out of nowhere and got his fingers to it and flicked it over the top. And it is one of those peculiar situations. And I think a minor point, but you always want everybody to be under pressure for their place, because that keeps them on their toes. And while we've got 5 goalkeepers, we've got absolutely nobody pushing Pope, because the Greek boy we didn't want to sign in the first place. We took him as part of Elliot Anderson. Dubrovka, we know from last season, is a little bit short now of Premier League class. Ruddy's 37 and Gillespie's been here 4 years and never had a Premier League game. So although we've got 5 goalkeepers, there's no pressure. Nobody's pushing Pope, which is what they were going to try to do with the Georgian goalkeeper who was playing in Spain, or James Trafford. That isn't there. But you're right, that was a clanger for the Spurs goal. And the ironic thing with goalkeepers, as you know, Malcolm, and we've all known during the years, you make a mistake, the ball's in the back of your net. Yeah. If the centre half makes a mistake, the goalkeeper might pull you out. If the right back makes a mistake, the left back might get across and cover. Yeah, but when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, inevitably the ball almost certainly will end up in the back of the net, which it did on the 1-1. And yes, I thought he was poor on that, but defensively, that apart, I mean, the back four, the willingness to fight, we got through uncouraged. And you know what? In some ways, guys, it just made me more angry that we didn't do more in the transfer window, because these lads deserve help. They have the basis of camaraderie, team spirit, big hearts, with a good smattering of ability throughout the side, that if only we had a few extra bodies to take care of injuries. You know, we've got Willock out after all of this, and now we've got Kraft with an injury withdrawn from the Swedish squad. We haven't got strength and depth. If we had got people in the window, we would have a real chance. But for me, we've blown my chance of the Champions League, because if we're realistic, because we haven't got strength and depth to take us to the Champions League, and we're flying by the seat of our pants on results. We're not playing up to scratch, and I am looking, guys, when we start playing again, for a couple of players in particular to get back to this huge soaring standards that they produced last season, and that's Gordon and Isak. They haven't been poor, but they haven't shown the room that they did last year when Gordon was our player of the year and Isak scored 25 goals. They were absolutely terrorizing people. I look at Gordon and we know what's gone on in his mind. The Liverpool thing unsettled him, only getting 3 minutes with England when he was hoping for such a magnificent tournament unsettled him, and he hasn't quite got back to what he can be. Isak, that bothers me. His body language, he looks sort of almost lackadaisical, guys. Do you know what I mean? He's almost
Yeah.
like ambling. He's all, he's not boom, 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 boom after it and cutting balls out and bursting the gut. I'm not meaning he's not trying at all, and he's the most eloquent footballer we've got. But I think he can go up a notch, and I think Gordon can go up a notch. And when those two do go up a notch, then with the rest of it, we start cooking again.
Yeah, sure. And Eddie Howe has got to get the two wide men sorted as to exactly what their roles are, John, and get them playing. Barnes, fine on the left-hand side, no problems at all. But Gordon, switch him to the right-hand side, and he doesn't seem to me to be anywhere near what he can be on the left-hand side. Nowhere near. He's not a patch on it. And I just wonder whether they should actually leave Gordon on the left, put Barnes on the right, or stick with Murphy. Because Murphy might not have that lovely touch that Barnes has got, for example, that other players have got. What he does is he gets telling crosses in, he gets good shots in, and he scores goals. He scores goals and he makes goals, and we saw that again on Sunday when he made Isak's goal, and he showed it with a terrific pace off the mark. Great ball from Joe Linton, but Murphy got his timing just right on the offside line. And at first I thought that it was actually Isak going because he was going so quick. But then I realised that Isak was coming in on the other side. And of course, he finished up receiving the pass from Murphy. And all of that's terrific stuff. But I go back to Pope. What we need is a goalkeeper to kill the game in Newcastle's favour and get us playing again. And we've got to get the two wide men because we are a side who we know we can show huge danger down the flanks. We can frighten sides with that, but we've got to get the right people onto the right sides. And I don't think switching Gordon to the right is an answer at all.
Can I ask you both what you thought of Harvey Barnes? Because it seemed to split the fans in half, after the match. And I mean, I thought the one thing he brings is goals. He scores goals. He's very confident in front of goal. Yeah. He had a chance before the goal and then scored a goal. I don't think he's got the same intensity as a Gordon. But I just wonder what your opinion is on Barnes. How is he settling in at Newcastle? Is he going to be here for a while? And do you think he's the future? Do you think there's something to build on there with him?
Personally, yes, I do. But my question mark about him is he rightly suited to the left?
Yeah.
Against Nottingham Forest, time and again, we saw him with the ball. He received it on the left wing, and he would come straight inside. Came inside all of the time. Now, if he's going to do that, we'll stick him on the right side, and he'll stay wide, and he'll go on the outside. And then you can have Gordon playing his usual game on the left-hand side, which is devastating to opposing sides, absolutely devastating his game, but he specialises on the left-hand side. Barnes, he narrows the pitch by keep coming inside. That's why I think I would like to see him on the right-hand side. If not, leave Barnes out and leave Murphy on the right-hand side, because you're going to get crosses and shots in from him.
I think one of the things for me with Barnes, in his defence, if we're going to have a defence, is that he's never actually had a run in the team because of his injuries last season. and he was a long time out. And then his position, because he was bought to play left, and I take what Malcolm says completely, but he was bought as a left, always made me wonder why he was bought when we already had Gordon to play left. Why not buy an outside right instead of another outside left?
Sure.
But we did. And he's never had a run in the team because Gordon was on fire last season. I mean, on fire. And he wasn't going to get in even when he got fit again. So he's not had a run in the team. So it's difficult to talk about whether he's going to make it or not at Newcastle when he's in, out. And he's even now in, out because the competition's Gordon, if you think of outside left. And you've got to start to try to get both Gordon and Bonds in the side. What Bonds gives you, as we've said, is he finishes. And I mean, he's finished to open up his body and finish on the volley like he did on the first goal was absolutely superb. To be able to finish like that was such great technique that I thought he did ever so well. But yes,
and it was his first time touch as well.
Yeah. But what I would also say, trying to look forward, guys, to when we resume hostilities at the end of the fortnight's international and break, in looking to be positive, and we should want to be positive, being unbeaten, being level on points with Arsenal, being in the League Cup. If we want to be positive, two of the things that'll hit me when we start playing again is that Tonali will have another period because he's away with Italy. He's not playing during this fortnight. And he's the one player we don't want to be resting during the fortnight because he's rested for 10 months. We want him to play. And luckily he's away with Italy, so he will be training and playing in circumstances. I thought he did a lovely little cameo again. It was just a cameo because he didn't start like last time. But I think he can be the difference. You know what? We haven't signed anybody of note this summer. But yet, this fella is a new signing 12 months after he arrived because he didn't play last season. So he's still a £52 million new signing now. And I think he can have a great effect on us this season because he can play. He's got vision and he can play. There's no question. And he sees things early. So he'll be a help. And of course, as well as Kraft's done, and Steve made the point, and I think he's not let us down and been terrific. But whatever he does, he's got a big heart, he's terrific, he does a simple thing and does it well. But there's one thing you cannot beat, and that's class and composure. And Shaw's got class and composure. He's back now. From now on, he's back after his 3-game suspension. So we're looking at going away to Wolves and then 3 away games and home Man City. Tough because it's 3 away games where we're not good, including Wimbledon. And then Man City, which is tough wherever you play them. But we're going to have Shaw back. Tonali should be that further forward in physically playing games and getting used to it, where you can almost think of starting and perhaps lasting the 90 minutes or most of the 90 minutes. So there are pluses there for us.
Okay, this is a question where there's not really an answer, lads. It's your opinion. The transfer window, it left an air of depression. I can already sense it coming from you, John. So I'll come to you with this question first. It was a disappointing window. Why was it a disappointing window, and who's to blame for that disappointing window, John?
It was a diabolical window. It was more than disappointing. It was a diabolical window. Because it was so obvious to anyone, it was obvious to a blind man that we needed help. We didn't have strength and depth. Our squad, I'm sick of people in the club telling me, our squad's a good squad. Yes, it is, when everybody's fit, but everybody isn't fit. Willock's not fit, Botman's not fit, Lascelles is not fit, Miley's not fit, and now Kraft's not fit. Wilson's not fit. So you can't, and in key situations, and it was admitted by Eddie Howe, in key situations we needed improvement. And without naming it, he's talking about a centre half and an outside right to start with. A real top class goalkeeper behind Pope, yes, and his centre forward still vulnerable because we've got Wilson in his situation, and the kid is 15 million, very raw, one for the future. But you wouldn't want him to have to play the next 6 Premier League games because Isak was injured, would you? The kid, because that would be unfair on him. So it was a diabolical window. And it was a diabolical window, I think, because we tried to be too clever. Now, it's one question about whether Gay was worth 70 million. That's not the thing that I'm bothered about now. If he wasn't worth 70 million, get out straight away. Straight away, they were here. Liverpool gave a phone call to Crystal Palace, it now turns out, at the same time as we did initially. Crystal Palace said, we want the thick end of 70 million, 65 million bottom line, and we want it virtually all up front. Liverpool said, we rate the lad, but we're pulling out. We're not going to pay that. They may come back in a year's time in the summer next year when the figure will be a darn sight lower because he'll only have a year left on his contract. But they pulled out. So we either pull out at that stage and go and get another centre half, or we pay the money. What we don't do is fiddle about for a full month until 2 days before the transfer deadline and lose out for the sake of 5 million, either because that's what they were short of at the time. And they go on long enough where they're not getting the vibes. First of all, they sell Anderson to Fulham. So they've sold a centre half. Secondly, they buy in a centre half from Barcelona, a kid that had been to Real Betis on loan, and he gets injured in his first game. So there's 2 centre halves out the picture. They make Gay skipper when they start the Premier League season, and then they play him in the League Cup, so he's cup tied. Are they not telling us that they're not going to faff about with us? We're not going to get, and then at the last minute, we'll go and try to dump 50 million on Nottingham Forest for Elanga. Well, I mean, you're not going to be able to do that deal in a matter of hours on the last day of the transfer window. So we've hit behind the financial fair play restrictions, but by our own admittance, we were capable of paying £70 million for Gay. I mean, forget whether he's worth it or not. And I think that fee's too high. But forget whether he's worth it or not. We had the money to do that. We end up with it in the bank. We don't spend it on a centre half or an outside right. That's a dereliction of duty, in my opinion. And Alan Shearer said that Eddie Howe has been let down, and I believe he has. Eddie Howe said himself that this is the biggest window he's ever had where he's been hands off. Now, I'm not meaning that we needed him to do the deal, etc., etc. But you know what? If Paul Mitchell had pulled off Gay at 50 million, or had dumped him and got another centre half for 40 million, and had got Elanga to play outside right, he would be getting all the plaudits now, along with Darren Eales, for what Newcastle have done. So if you don't do it, you expect the brickbacks. And at the moment, we've got a new director of sport in whose first window has done him no favours. And it hasn't.
What's your thoughts, Mal? Disappointing window?
Oh, dreadfully so. And I couldn't agree more with John that I think Eddie Howe has been seriously let down. That and you have to have a number of irons in the fire, not just go chasing one. And that's what we seem to do. It was talk, we need a centre half, we need an outside right. Well, hang on, what's happened to the outside right business? That went by as well. And I just thought it was a complete shambles, in all honesty. That you're never guaranteed anything in the transfer business anyway. So you've got to have a number of options and alternatives. And Newcastle, they just seem to have this one idea of signing Gay, and it didn't. It really didn't bode well for the future of Mitchell at Newcastle. It really didn't. And can Eddie Howe trust the man to go and do the right business? I can't see at the moment how he can.
Isn't it harsh to put it at Mitchell's door, John? I mean, he's only been there a couple of months. We had a summer of discontent. It's probably the best way to describe it. We had Newcastle just missing out on Europe. We then had lots of players linked with, departure. We had that farcical situation where we knew that Bruno could be release clause could be used at any time. Then we had this search for the new sporting director, but we had Dan Ashworth on gardening leave. Then we get into June, and Eddie's forced to sell 2 players he doesn't want to sell because of PSR. Then we go to July, and we have the Amanda Staveley-Meerdad bombshell, where the 2 faces of Newcastle, the PR faces, are forced to leave. And we then have the appointment of Mitchell, which is lauded in some quarters, but when you look at his CV, it's like every other agent. He's had some positives, but he's had some negatives. And then, as Malcolm's quite rightly pointed out, we spend most of the summer chasing a centre half we haven't ended up with. And and you've mentioned we chase a right winger, and right on deadline day we seemingly go for Elanga. Bizarre. Comes out of nowhere. And I've heard that we were even pushing to try and sign Ivan Toney on the last day of the season. I do know as well that we did have another 3 centre halves that the scouts had picked out. However, simply they were told it's Gay or nothing. So, it's been a summer of discontent, John. And is it fair to blame Mitchell?
There has been a summer of discontent. It's been a horrible summer. It's something that we're not used to since the takeover, because it hasn't happened. And of course, a lot of that summer of discontent's got absolutely nothing to do with Paul Mitchell, because you're talking about it being Amanda going, and the financial fair play, meaning we've got to sell Elliot Anderson. That's got nothing to do with Paul Mitchell. But the bottom line is that if results on the field are bad, the manager gets a sack. Yeah. So if things in the transfer market are bad, the buck's bound to stop with the guy who's in charge of the transfer market, which now is Paul Mitchell. And the thing that concerns me is that Paul Mitchell, the word on the grapevine, has told Eddie Howe very early on that he would be able to deliver Gay for him, and then has a month of negotiations to try to deliver Gay and doesn't do so. So the buck has to stop with Paul. Now, I'm very hopeful, because I care about Newcastle United, that in January and next summer, Paul Mitchell will cover himself in glory and will have some wonderful signings and will be off flying, in which case he'll get all the kudos that he deserves. But when it doesn't happen, you expect, if a manager loses 6 games on the trot, he doesn't go home and think I'm as safe as houses. He goes home and says to missus, we might be moving next week because I might get the tin tack. The buck stops with the man in charge of that particular department. The buck stops with the manager with results, and the buck stops with the director of sport in the transfer market. Whether that is justified or not, it is the nature of the beast being football. So it does happen that way. It is tough, but you've got to have success and you've got to hit the ground running. And Newcastle have missed a tremendous opportunity to do something. And you've got to bear in mind as well, when we're looking at the whole summer purely in terms of transfer business, we were as bad at selling as we were at buying. We didn't give ourselves wiggle room because we couldn't move on Almiron, or we couldn't move on Trippier, or we couldn't move on Callum Wilson. And I know why in his situation with his injuries. But we have to move on players. I mean, Aston Villa moved on Louise, who was one of their top players when they won to get in the Champions League, but they had to move him on. Financial fair play, and they sold him to Juventus, and then they reinvested money, and off they went again. You've got to sell as well as buy, and Newcastle have been bad at selling. Now, some of that might be down to Eddie, because according to Eddie, he doesn't want to get rid of anybody. I mean, they tried to sell the tea lady the other day, and Eddie said she's very good, and she's in the group, the leaders group, so you can't get rid of her. I mean, don't get rid of anybody. Everybody stays. Bless them. But you've got to have a revolving door. Some go out and some come in. We were as bad on sales as we were on buying in, and that has got to improve, and it's got to improve quickly. And the worry is now, guys, the next transfer window is January. It's only 1 month. It's not several months like the summer. And nobody wants to sell in January because of the time limit, and because they need results, and they want to make certain they stay up, and they haven't got as much wiggle room. So the next transfer window is going to be difficult to do deals in. A lot more difficult than the summer was. And yet we need some help. I bet if we are still in the League Cup, or with the FA Cup still to come, and with trying to get into Europe, if it's one of the minor Europes, if it's not the Champions League, then we need help in January, because this squad now is weaker than it was 12 months ago. And there's a saying in football, which Malcolm will know well, at the top end of football, the top end of the Premier League, if you stand still, you're going backwards, because everybody else improves their side. So you stand still, you're going backwards, because sides will go in front of you.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Transfer window's done, close till January. So we will come back after the ads and talk a little bit more about Newcastle United. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102, or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to our NUFC Matters fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. All excursions included, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, a 2-crew driver and courier. It's a local family company, and you can find them at www.unitedgrouptravel.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video. That's the like button. It does help us grow. And click the share button. Help share to your social media. If you want to join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month, then hit the join button under this video today. We also help the food bank on this channel. Visit nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. It takes you to the matchday bucket where you can donate some money virtually. Some events for your diary in aid of Dementia Matters. The Long Sands will be reforming and be supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band at the Cluny in Newcastle on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets are £15 pre-sale from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January 2025. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com or from Woucher. And an evening with the Entertainers takes place on the 24th of January 2025. Telephone the box office 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge at Gateshead Leisure Centre is now open. 7 tokens for £99. Joe Allen will be hosting talk-ins with Lee Clark, John Anderson, Steve Howie, Darren Peacock, Supermac, Steve Watson, John Beresford, all between the dates of January and July. £99 for 7 talk-ins, newcastlelegends.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our NUFC Matters fanzine, £20 for 4 issues with all proceeds going to Dementia Matters. If you live overseas, it is £50 for 4 issues. To order now, go to newcastlelegends.com. And a big thanks to everybody who subscribed to the fanzine, just getting it ready this week to send off. And some great articles in there. We've done 71 subscriptions, so it means we've got a nice little chunk of money to hand over to Dementia Matters. Big thanks to Beverly at the coach company United Group Travel for agreeing to sponsor the print run as well. So thanks very much for that. So overall, lads, let's look back at the first 4 games. 7 points out of 9, John, and through to the next round of the Carabao Cup by the skin of our teeth on penalties. But overall, I guess the message that we're probably going to preach on here is could do better.
Yes, I think both that's true. On one side, it could almost not have gone better. I'm talking about results because we're unbeaten and we're through to the next round and we've got a good draw in the cup, Wimbledon. So on results, it's totally acceptable. Who would have thought at this stage, where we've come to the international break, would end up on the same points as Arsenal? So it is okay results-wise. Performance-wise, it's been anything but. We've never had a full 90 minutes of the Newcastle United we know and love this season. We've had it in patches. The patches have been good, and it's bamboozled me on occasions why they suddenly end. For example, I thought we started very, very well against Spurs. After about a quarter of an hour, I'm thinking this is a bit more like us. We are having a go here. We're playing at a high tempo. We're pressing. And then all of a sudden, we just drift. You know, when you're in the car and you take your foot off the accelerator and the car just slowly starts drifting down towards 30 miles an hour. That was what was happening with Newcastle. And they never got back up to that. Valiant fight at the back and all that, absolutely. But we never got back to it. We've never played well. And we've played every opposition, including the Cup, has been Premier League, but it's been Premier League average sides, not good sides, until we played Spurs. And while they are expected to be top 6 and have some wonderful players, they did have Solanke out and Richarlison out, so they didn't have a centre forward, and brother, that showed, I think, in the play. And they've got this soft underbelly where they don't like a fight. And if you roll your sleeves up and you meet them muscle for muscle, they don't like it. And that shows with the 2 away results, drawing at Leicester and losing to us. So the tough parts to come. We've got 3 away games on the trot, all of which, in theory, are either winnable or they're certainly not going to frighten you. Away to Wolves, who started the season very badly, away to Wimbledon, who are a League 2 side, and away to Fulham, who, with respect, you've got a chance against. But then you say that, but our away form so far last season, 11 defeats out of 19 in the Premier League, and we've started with 2 away draws this season because Forest wasn't a away draw in 90 minutes. It was a penalty shootout after that. So our away form's been bad. We've got 3 away games, and then when we come home and thinking, well, at least we get 3 points because we're at home, it happens to be Manchester City, which is no guarantee of anything apart from a possible smacking of the derriere. So it is a tough old start with 3 away games and a home game with City to come. But can do better, yes. In those 3 away games, I must reiterate, guys, aren't terrifying away games. Away Wolves, away Fulham in the league. If you're going to get into Europe, you get results there. In Wimbledon, yes, at their level they've done terrific and they knocked Ipswich out, but Ipswich are struggling like so-and-so, and what side did they put out for that game? Wimbledon, bottom line, are League 2. So we couldn't have got a better draw unless it was Wimbledon at home instead of away. So we have to do better. But again, I'm looking at it and saying Shaw's back in the team or in the squad. That's going to help. Tonali's much more ready to play, hopefully. And presumably Gordon and Isaac, they're away with the national sides. They might come back. They might be a bit higher towards the impact play that they did last season. And we've got a chance. We're going to suffer because of the transfer window. There's absolutely no question about that. When we get into the really big sides, as the rest of the season unfurls, we're going to be in trouble because of injuries when we play Arsenal, because we are limited. But the next four fixtures, all difficult, but not impossible, especially the three away ones. But we have to do better. We have to be more consistent. When we win and win well, we play the high tempo with a high press.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done that for 90 minutes. We did that for 90 minutes in certain games last season, and we definitely did it in the season we finished fourth top. We need to do that, and we've got to get back to that with consistency, because we're not quite. And I'm looking for our blue chip players to get back to what they were. Because I reiterate, I don't think Gordon has been, I don't think Isaac has been. And ironically, Joe Linton away from home has been poor, but at home to Southampton and at home to Spurs, an absolute colossus. And
Terrific, wasn't he?
I need him to be consistent like that again. We
Yeah.
need top players to be on top form, and that's what I'm looking to happen.
So if you were marking Newcastle United's books, Malcolm, would it be could do better? Was that what you would put down for the first few games?
I think so. Yes, and certainly, I think Eddie Howe should have a word with the goalkeeping coaches and say we're not punching out. We need to get hold of the ball, kill the game, so that we can start on our terms, not on the opposition's terms. And so, yeah, there are messages for all departments. I think it's got to be a bit more positive. But in all fairness, I think the back four have done exceedingly well. I really do, considering that with Shah's suspension, that Kraft has come in, and I think he's been absolutely terrific. And I was a huge critic of him over his first 2 or 3 years at the club, hugely critical. But I think that I think he's learned a hell of a lot, and for him to be able to transfer into the middle in the way that he has done, and take on such a solid position as he created for himself, I think was absolutely marvellous. And you won't see any complaints from Dan Burn next to him. I think Dan Burn's well pleased at the way that Kraft has performed.
Funny thing, Malcolm, with Kraft, and with hindsight, when I look at him, in lots of ways, I've got a suspicion that right side centre half suits him more than right back, because he's tucked in. His lack of pace isn't exposed. He does the simple things very well, and he's not tempted to be clever. If he's playing at right back, which was his original position, if you get a quick, tricky winner against him, it's a bit like Dan Burn when he played left back. You don't want that. So in a way, ironically, Mal, I think that, the right side of centre half suits him a little bit.
I think it does, John. I fully understand what you're saying, because I think at right back, you can be somewhat exposed and you're left in that 1-against-1 situation. Whereas in the middle, you're never going to be that exposed. There's always going to be people around you and in front of you. And the midfield do their job ever so well in terms of getting back, Bruno, he gets back and he's in front, so that it's very difficult for the opposing midfield players to be knocking it into the feet of the centre forwards. Very difficult indeed. So they've got to look to do it on angles. But Kraft knows that there's always support around him, in front of him, and from there, I think he's done an absolutely terrific job. And well done to him for it. I've given him an awful lot of stick over the years, but I just want to make recompense now.
I think the interesting thing was saying how well Newcastle have done defensively. And if you look at the goals against, we have not been taken apart on the goals against.
Yeah.
We've done a good job, and we were defensively very strong.
Mind, if you were the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, John, at half time, I think you would have been really giving them some stick for their lack of shooting.
Oh, everything was from distance and nothing was contrived inside the box. But I would also, if I was the players, I'd be saying to the manager, by the way, Gaffer, can you stop telling us to play a high line at the back, because we're getting slaughtered on the counter? and that's what happened to them.
Yeah.
The interesting thing where we were saying that at the back, Newcastle have done well defensively in the half. And as I say, I think Kraft is better tucked in with Bruno in front of him and somebody both sides of him at centre half rather than at right back. What we've got to decide after our early season form, defensively, from my point of view, is who's going to be the regular left back, Hall or Kelly, because we haven't quite got that one sorted yet.
Well, it is. It's a very interesting argument, is this? And right now, John, if you were to throw the question at me, and I had to give you an answer, I would say just at the moment I don't think either is good enough. I've not been impressed by either of them enough to say, yeah, you warrant that place, that position in the side.
Malcolm, that's exactly why I brought it up for you to talk, is because I've looked at the both. Hall going forward's fine. He's sprayed off, but he's a ball watcher. People run off the back of him.
Yes, they do.
Very easily. And Kelly did terrific on Barnes' goal, a quick throw in, and it was a nice cutback, etc. But I haven't been totally convinced yet. It's the one position where I think we're a little bit vulnerable, and Eddie's going to have to decide who's going to be his left back.
Can I tell you who I would play?
Go on.
And who I would keep? Kieran Trippier.
I knew you were going to say that, and that's right up Malcolm's, right up his cul-de-sac, because I think Malcolm would do the same.
I would, yes. I'd play Trippier at left back, and I just get the feeling that that he and Eddie Howe have sat down and sort of had a very frank and open discussion between them. Will Trippier leave? Because the window is shut in this country, but it hasn't shut in other countries. There's talk of him going to Turkey. They close, I think, on the 18th of September. So he's got 2 weeks still to go on that one.
I'll tell you one thing, Malcolm. In my humble opinion, if we sell Trippier now to Turkey, and it's true that their window's still open, we will absolutely be putting the guy on top of the bonfire and lighting the bonfire. If we were going to sell Trippier, we ought to have sold him a month ago when we could use his money to help us get an outside right and a centre half.
Yes.
If we do it now, when we can't reinvest the money until January, we're weakening the squad even further.
Sure.
we didn't sell them when we should have sold them, and now we'll sell them when we shouldn't sell them. I mean, that would be ludicrous. If that happens, we would want a lot of answers from Paul Mitchell, because Eddie Howe's already stated that he doesn't want it to happen. Now, you've got to take in the wishes of the player, because you can have very special circumstances, and Trips has been wonderful for us. And if he has personal circumstances that he wishes to leave, you've got to think of that. But the time to think about that was a month ago. We are reactive in the transfer market, where we've got to be proactive. We missed our chance to sell Trippier when we could have reinvested the millions in a centre half and an outside right, and we could have got them both with the extra money from Trips. But to sell him now and put it in the bank with the 70 million we already kept on Gay and being yet another player down, that is the most ludicrous thing that would ever happen. I was talking about willing to sacrifice Trippier in the summer in this window, because we had to sacrifice somebody. We had to sacrifice Trippier or Callum Wilson or Almiron to get the turnover going. We sacrificed none of them. So we sacrificed none of them in the window, and then we sacrificed one of them when the window shuts. Please do me a favour. We're kind
I know.
Newcastle United won't be that thick, can they?
Yeah, and also, John, there is a delicious irony going on in terms that Trippier is out of the England squad, but Livramento has gone in.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I tell you what, just going back to what started that outburst for me on Trips, was Steve saying he played Trips left back, and I know, Malcolm, that you thought of that, and I can thoroughly understand why you think that, because he played 6 games in the Euros at left back, and did very, very well. But can I turn that thing on its head, guys, and say to you, have we got a problem with left back? Because we've spent 15 million, and I know it's before the current hierarchy, on Lewis, who's just left on the most sensational transfer of the window. I think born on to go to San Paulo and sign for the former world club champions at the other end of the world. I mean, do me a favour. That's the most incredible transfer of the whole transfer window. But anyway, Jamal Lewis we bought. Then we got Target on loan and thought he did so well. We paid 16 million for Target and never played him since. He's either been injured or they haven't rated him. And then we played Dan Burn at left back when he's effectively a centre half, and proved that when he played left back. And then we paid £28 million for Hall, and then we get Kelly on a free transfer to play left back. So we've had Jamal Lewis, we've had Target, we've had Byrne, we've had Hall, we've had Kelly, and we're still talking about playing a 34-year-old right back at left back. Can we not sign left backs? What is it with left backs? We don't seem to get one that we stick with. We get one and jettison him.
Sure, but I think it just throws up, doesn't it? The difference between the guy who signs the players on and the managers, and what the manager thinks of the individual that's been signed. And it was obvious that that whoever was responsible for bringing Hall in from Chelsea hadn't really consulted Eddie Howe, because Eddie Howe has made it quite apparent that he doesn't really fancy the lad, and I still don't think that he does fancy him at left back, and that's why he's brought this new lad in, Lewis,
Kelly.
Kelly. And we've got to see what he's capable of. But I have
surely
major question marks over him.
Yeah, I take all that, Mal, but surely here's an example. How on earth did Eddie have Target on loan and then presumably give the green light to spending £16 million on him?
I know. And John, in all of that time, he never got any quicker.
No,
No.
you don't, do you?
And
You
that's
get
his weak
slower
spot.
at anything. You never get quicker. Yeah, and that's true. That's true. But I just thought that's been a fascinating thing for me. We can't sign left backs and bringing
Yeah.
up that we could play trips, and I can thoroughly understand the theory of playing trips. Just to me, emphasise the problem we've had down the years with left backs.
Yeah.
Mm.
The clock, unfortunately, has beaten us. Very rare do we disagree on this programme. I will disagree with John, though. He says the most sensational thing that happened in the transfer window was Lewis going to Sao Paulo. The most sensational thing for me is Steve Bruce going back into football at Blackpool. So,
well, that's all up for us to consider. If getting the Blackpool job with the lunatic club that's been over the years is going back into football, it is quite. It is quite that's a double header. I thought you were going to say us not buying anybody was the most ludicrous thing that happened in the transfer market. But there's been some corkers, hasn't there? I mean, Jamal Lewis amazed me, and then this morning I saw 2-year contract for Stevie Wonder down at Blackpool, who evidently his record is unrivaled for not only developing players but developing coaching staff, according to the chairman, which I've just read this morning. And I polished my glasses to make certain I was reading the right words, and I was. And good luck to them, because they made other things in the 2 years that he's at Blackpool.
I think the chairman's had an all-nighter at the Tower Lounge or in the ballroom. There's definitely something not right there. Good luck to Blackpool. They're going to need it. There's no doubt about that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us in the chat. This has been a great show. As always, thanks to Supermac. Thanks to Gibbo. I'm back tomorrow night with the Amigos live at 5. Take care, everybody. See you, lads.
Take care,
boys. Take care.